and will let us have the recap of whatever we have learned in the last two sessions, last two lectures. Okay, so I'll open my PDF so that we'll begin from this. Okay, why I'm showing you this diagram again and again, because this is very important, and whatever the part we are going to start and discuss right now relates to this diagram. Okay, you can see the floral diagram, that is a LS of flower, longitudinal section of flower, where you can see all these parts: outermost calyx, carotium, and gynoecium. Now what we have learned last time we have discussed is the male reproductive part and female reproductive part. Male reproductive part is what? This is what called as androecium, a singular one is called as stamen. And what are the parts of stamen? This filament, and this is anther. Anther contains the pollen grains, and we have learned last time the development of male gametophyte. Okay, and now afterwards, this the central one, centralmost part, the innermost wall called as gynoecium. A singular one is called as carpel or pistil, which is made up of this basal oval part called as ovary, this tubular part as style, and the most topmost part which receives the pollen grains, that is called as stigma. Okay, and this stigma, style, and ovary together called as gynoecium, a singular one is called as carpel or pistil. And the development of female gametophyte which takes place here in the ovule, that also we have learned. Okay, why I'm showing you the diagram is the part which we are going to discuss is next part is pollination, and how the pollination takes place. For that, this diagram you should know. So pollination is what? Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma, either of the same flower or of the different flower of the same plant, or of the different flower of the another plant of the same species. So that's why I'm showing you this diagram. So from here, whenever the pollens mature, pollen grains mature, they fall on the stigma, that is this part. That's why I'm showing you this diagram first. Okay, now we'll come to the next that we have already learned. So right now I will come to the part where I will show you the some of the slides where we'll discuss these points. Okay, now we'll see what is the definition of pollination, that is transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the flower. That is what simple definition. Just now I showed you the parts also. Stigma is the topmost part of the gynoecium, that is the carpel, and I showed you the anther also, that is the pollen grains where they are produced. So these pollen grains are transferred from anther to the stigma of the flower. That flower may be the same flower or the neighboring flower of the same plant, or it may be of different plant. That flower might be of different plant. So the simple definition is what? Transfer of pollen grains from anthers to the stigma of flower. Now, this is the very most important prerequisite. Why it is important, do you know? Because both male and female gametes are non-motile. Last time we have discussed the development of male gametophyte as well as development of female gametophyte. That I told you that the male gametes, how they are produced. What is the male gametophyte in the pollen tube? The two male gametes which are non-motile, and that's why this pollen tube is required, right? So that's why that is also non-motile. And the female gamete, that is, I showed you the entire development of female gametophyte, where female gamete is what? Nothing but egg cell. So both are non-motile, and that's why there are some agents required to reach the male gamete to the female gamete. Now what is that we will discuss. Before that, the different types of pollinations we will come to. Now first is what? Autogamy. Auto means self, and self pollination is known by autogamy. The second type is called as geitonogamy. Geiton means neighbor. Geiton means neighbor. That means the transfer of pollen grains is from anthers to the stigma of the neighboring flower, that is called as geitonogamy. It is also considered to be a part of autogamy. First, previously it was divided, it was coming under, it was considered to be under self-pollination only. Auto is what? Self. Autogamy is what? Self. And the geiton means within the same flower, and geiton is what? From the neighboring flower, but the same plant. Now, what is xenogamy? Xenogamy means cross pollination, where two different plants but of the same species are involved. That is what called as xenogamy. Now, one by one, step by step, we will discuss all these. Now, auto, as I told you, that self pollination. Now, what are the requirements for the self pollination? First of all, that flower should be bisexual. Bisexual means what? Bi means two. Sexual part, that means both the sexual parts, that means organs, are present in the same flower. That means the flower is bisexual. What are the sex organs in the flower? That is male sex organ as androecium and female sex organ as gynoecium. Now, one more thing is required for self-pollination, that pollinating agents are must. Without, sorry, not must, they are not required. So these external pollinating agents are not required, because the pollination is taking place within the same flower. As the same flower is containing both the sex organs, androecium and gynoecium, there is no need to have any external pollinating agent. That is very important thing. And offsprings are genetically identical to their parents. You know why? Because the same parent is same. So, offsprings will be produced same as that of the parents, because within the same flower, both the sex organs, that's the androecium and gynoecium, are involved, present. And the most common example is pea. Now, what are the inbreeding methods, or what are the adaptations for self-pollination? As I discussed, that bisexuality is very important. Just now I said that the second most important thing is that homogamy. Homo means similar. Gametes. Both the male and female gametes mature at the same time. And that is what called as homogamy. Okay, this is also the second important most criteria. First is bisexuality, second is homogamy. Now the third is what? Cleistogamy. Cleistogamy means what? These flowers do not open before self-pollination. Means self-pollination first of all take place, and then only they open, either, or they never open. And generally in case of underground flowers like Commelina bengalensis, that is also called as Bengal day flower or day Bengal flower. So this flower never opens, because it opens under the ground. So it grows under the ground. That's why it doesn't open. And as it contains both the sex organs, that is male and female, as androecium, gynoecium, they are present within the closed flower itself. Self-pollination takes place. So there is no chance of cross-pollination, as the flowers do not open. Okay. Or if they open, then when they open after the self-pollination takes place. That is the most important criteria, where there are no chances of cross-pollination. Only self-pollination can take place. That is what called as cleistogamy. Now the second, which is related to cleistogamy, is called as chasmogamy. Now flowers open, but when? After the sex organs are matured, and self-pollination takes place first, and then they open. Then these sex organs are exposed. That means they open. That is what called as chasmogamy. Means the difference between cleistogamy and chasmogamy is very less, little. That is what, that in cleistogamy, generally flowers, they don't open only. Flowers don't open. Or if they open after the self-pollination. In chasmogamy, only after the maturity and self-pollination only, these sex organs are exposed. That means they are open. And the example are viola and commelina. Okay. So, you can see the diagrams here, the pictures. This is the viola soraria, that is cleistogamy is seen. That means these flowers are closed totally. And here is the chasmogamy, where these sex organs are exposed. After the self-pollination, they get open. So that is the chasmogamy. Then here is one more example of cleistogamy. That is, these flowers are totally closed, they never open, and this is very commonly observed where in case of generally, in case of wheat or such flowers, this is very common phenomena. Now this is again one more example of chasmogamy, where self-pollination takes place and then these flower open, or only after the maturity these sex organs are opened, so less chances of cross pollination and more chances of self pollination. But here also cross pollination may takes place rarely in case of plasmogamy. Now, the second type of pollination is geitonogamy. Geiton means neighbor. Now, in this case, what happens? Transfer of pollen grains is from anther to the stigma of the different flower, but the plant is same. That is produced on the same plant. Functionally, they are similar to that of the cross pollination. That means what? The flowers are different. That's why you can consider it as a cross pollination, which involves pollinating agents like wind, air, whatever, wind or insects or something like that. To that point, we'll come to the next in the next part. So pollinating agents are required. So that's why it is similar to functionally similar to cross pollination, but genetically it is not similar to cross pollination, but it is similar to that of the self pollination. So that's why just kept as a separate type of pollination, that geitonogamy. As two flowers are involved, pollinating agents are required, it refers or similar to cross pollination, but there as the same plant is present, there are no chances of variations, genetic variations, so it is similar to self pollination. So it comes in between the self pollination, that is autogamy, and the xenogamy. Okay, now this is the picture you can see here, where this is the example of jasmine, China rose, where geitonogamy can be observed, or even the self-pollination can take place within the same flower, that is autogamy also can take place. And you can see these transfer of anthers from one flower to the neighboring flower, but the plant is same. So this is what called as geitonogamy. Here, very common examples where neighboring flowers are there and there are chances of geitonogamy. So this is the example. These pictures are the examples of geitonogamy. Now, next and the third is the most important and vast you can see, that is xenogamy, that is called as cross pollination. Here, transfer of pollen grains is from anthers of one flower to the stigma of a flower of different plant, but belonging to the same species. Species is same, but the plants are different. So that is called as cross pollination. Transfer of pollen grains from anthers to the stigma of the flower is same, common. If it is same flower, it is autogamy. If it is neighboring flower of the same plant, that is geitonogamy. But when the plant is different, flower is different, then that is xenogamy, cross pollination. And the most important criteria which is required for this xenogamy or cross pollination is the pollinating agents are must. They are required. Without pollinating agents, these anthers or the pollen grains which are non-motile cannot reach the female gamete, that is the egg cell. And as the two different plants are involved, maybe of the same species, but the two different plants are involved, genetically you get so many variations. So offsprings which are produced, they are genetically varied. Now, what are the types of pollinating agents? One by one, we will talk about these pollinating agents. First, there are two criteria or two basic types of pollinating agents. One is abiotic and the second is biotic. Abiotic agents means what? They are non-living. The examples of non-living abiotic agents are wind and water. Whereas biotic agents, there are different types of biotic agents. Only few I have mentioned, that is insects, birds, bats, human, snakes, snails, and many more animals also that come under biotic agents. But here only few we will discuss which are included in our syllabus. Now, we'll talk about first abiotic agents, that is non-living agents. And these are wind and water. One by one we'll go. First is wind pollination. Wind pollination is also called as anemophily. Anemophily means wind pollination only, not the animal pollination. Remember, so many times students make mistakes, and if anemophily, that means animals are the agents. They write like that, but it is not right. It is not correct. Wind, animos means wind. And so when the pollinating agent is wind, that type of pollination is called as anemophily. And the flowers which show the adaptations in themselves are called as anemophilous flowers. And very common examples of wind pollinated plants is crop plants. You know, all crop plants like wheat, rice, corn, barley, jowar, oat, etc. These are all the crop plants are the best example of anemophily, where the wind is the pollinating agent. All these cereals, they are the examples of pollinating agents. Now, what are the adaptations seen in these type of plants? One by one we'll discuss. First is flower. Now, what type of flowers these are in case of anemophily? Anemophilous flowers are very small, inconspicuous, they're colorless, without nectar or fragrance. You know why? As wind is the agent, there is no need to have any this size of the flower very large. Then they are colorless. They no need to attract somebody. Winds do not require this attraction, so easily they are carried. They are blown from one direction to the other direction, and they do not need also does not need also the nectar or fragrance. So these flowers, they lack nectar, fragrance, color, etc. Now, what type of pollen grains are these flowers having? They are dry, lightweight, and they are produced in large number. As per the direction of the wind, these pollen grains are carried from one place to the another place. So they should be very lightweight, and they should be dry also. So these pollen grains are very dry. They are with very less weight, lightweight, and they are produced in large number. Why? You know why? Because wind doesn't know where, in which direction, from where to where go, and so there are chances of vestige of pollen grains in this type of anemophily type of pollination, that means wind pollination. So pollen grains are produced in large number. Now stigma, how the stigma? Feathery. Stigma is feathery to trap pollen grains carried by wind. You know, as per the direction of the wind, when it is blowing from one direction to the other, these pollen grains should be trapped. So that's why the stigma of the these flowers are feathery. So maximum pollen grains can be trapped. Stamens. How the stamens? They are the filaments are long. You know, stamens are made up of anthers and filaments. So filaments are long, so that, and anthers are versatile. Versatile means what? Only at the point of one point the anthers get stick. They are attached to the filament. So the maximum surface area is made free, available to blow as per the direction. So maximum surface is available for the wind, and so maximum pollen grains are carried away with the help of wind. So anthers are versatile, and as the filament is long, it gets the chance to move as per the direction of the blowing wind. So stamens and stigma are exposed to air currents. So these are the adaptations of anemophilous flowers. Now we'll come to the next pollinating agent, that is a biotic agent called as water. And when the pollination takes place by the agency of water, this type of pollination is called as hydrophily. And it's found in some 30 genera of aquatic monocots. Okay. Examples, some of the examples are mentioned, that is Vallisneria, Zostera, Ceratophyllum, etc. Now let us see what are the adaptations seen in the hydrophilous flowers. What type of flowers are there? These flowers are small, inconspicuous, perianth, and other floral parts are unwettable. As these parts or these flowers remain in water, they should not be desiccated. So that's why these are unwettable. It should be unwettable. Then pollen grains are long and unwettable due to presence of mucilage. As these pollen grains self secrete the mucilaginous substance, they remain unwettable and they are long enough. Nectar and fragrance are lacking in the flower because water current doesn't need any smell or fragrance or nectar. So they lack this substance. Nectar is not required. Now there are again two types of hydrophily. Hydrophilous flowers are of two types. Hydrophily is seen in two cases. Means first type is of hypohydrophily and the second is what? Epihydrophily. Now you know the meaning of hypo and epi. Hypo means below and epi means above. when the pollination takes place below the water surface, under the water, then that is called as hypohydrophily. And when the pollination takes place by water currents above the level of water, then that is called as epihydrophily. Now we'll see how it takes place. Now, what in which case it takes place? For example, in case of hypohydrophily, when the pollen grains are heavier than water, then what happens? Any substance or any object which is heavier than water, it sinks down, right? So the same way, the pollen grains are produced above the surface of the water, and so when they fall on the water as they are heavy, they go down, they sink down. And at the same time, as the female part or female plants or female flowers, when they are grown below the water, under the water, the stigma of the female flower catches the pollens, because these pollens are heavy, and then the pollination takes place. So the pollen grains are long, ribbon-like, and without exine in case of all these hydrophilous type of flower. But in case of hypohydrophily, though the pollen grains are produced above the surface of water, as they are heavy, when they are removed from the plant, they fall on the water, they sink down, and these are caught hold by the stigmas of the female flower, which are growing under the water surface. Okay. Now, what happens in epihydrophily? In epihydrophily, what happens? There are generally, in case of the hydrophilous flower, there are two types of plants, means female plant and male plant. Both are different, or the plant is same, that means dioecious condition is generally observed. Dioecious means what? The plants are different, male plant is different, female plant is different, that is what called as dioecious condition. Now, for example, in case of Vallisneria, the given example is Vallisneria, that is a submerged dioecious freshwater aquatic plant. That dioecious means what? The male plant is different, female plant is different. It is freshwater aquatic plant, Vallisneria. What happens then? The male plant, in case of this, pollen grains are lightweight, so they float on the water surface. And what happens in case of female plant? Female plant is submerged. Both are actually submerged. The pollen grains are very light in weight, so they grow and float on the water. But in case of this female flower, what happens? This female branch is, that style is having a long style, and it is coiled one in water. And when the stigma becomes receptive, it grows, comes temporarily on the top of the water surface, and there that receives the pollen grains which are floating on the surface of the water, and then in this way the pollination takes place. The female plant or the female flower, which is submerged but temporarily it comes above the water surface and receives the floating stigmas on the floating pollen grains from the water surface, and in this way the pollination takes place above the water surface. So this is what called as epihydrophily. So specific gravity of the pollen grain is equal to that of the water, and that's why these pollen grains can float on the surface of water. And some of the aquatic plants also show anemophily. Like for example, this anemophily, that is wind. Wind is the water current, not only water, but these are aquatic plants. But anemophily is observed. That means wind is the agent. Then Potamogeton and Halogaries, these are the examples, and some which show entamophilous nature. That means entamophily means when the agent is insect. Lotus, water hyacinth, water lily, where insects help in the cross pollination in these aquatic plants. Now we'll talk about the biotic agents. Biotic means living. The plants, most of the plants living biotic agents they show are about 80%. And what are these biotic agents? They are insects, birds, bats, snails, snakes, dogs, few animals, and human beings also. So these are all biotic agents. Okay. Now some of the examples only, whatever included in the syllabus we'll discuss. First is insect. When the pollination is by insect, that pollinating agent is if insect, that type of pollination is called as entomophily. And the common examples of entomophily are rose, jasmine, sepstrum, etc. Now, what are the adaptations seen in entomophilous flowers? We will talk. I will show you the picture also afterwards, but just we'll discuss few points first. Flowers are large. They are large enough to bear the weight of insect. Then showy means attractive. They are brightly colored so that the insects get attracted to the flowers very easily. Then flowers produce sweet odor, and because of that smell, very easily insects are attracted. And they have nectar glands also, and these flowers have nectar glands at their base, so that they can the insects can visit for getting the nectar. Stigma is rough. Stigma of the flower is rough due to presence of hair on it. You know why? And it is sticky also because of the secretion of mucilaginous substance. You know why? As it is rough, very easily it can stuck to the body of the insect. The pollen grains are spiny and surrounded by yellow sticky substance called pollen kit. Means if you have observed a hibiscus flower, you must have observed the centralmost part, that is a tube-like structure on which the anthers you can see yellow colored. These are nothing but these are the anthers, and these yellow colored the structure, that is the pollen kit that you can see. And when you observe under microscope, you can see the spiny nature of the pollen grains. You know why? Because this helps to get stuck to the body of the insect. This nature of the pollen grains helps to stick to the body of the insect easily, and that helps in the cross pollination. Now, some spatial adaptations are also seen in some flowers as well as insects. So, for the insects visitor to help the cross pollination, for example, lever mechanism, that is also called as turnpike mechanism, and that is commonly observed in salvia. And we will be, when our college will start, we will show you the flower also. Now you can observe this here. This is the salvia flower, where you can see in this two lobes. This is upper lobe and this is the lower lobe. Okay, the most important feature, we know why this type of structure is there. Because of this structure, very easily the insect can enter, right? The insect can enter the flower. And a few more adaptations seen in this salvia flower is that you can see that the upper lobe is having 3 fertile stamens as well as gynoecium, right? Upper lobe, whereas lower lobe is having 2 sterile stamens. Now, what is the reason behind it? When this insect enters the flower to get the nectar, which is present at the base of this nectar glands are present at the base of the flower, and when it visits during that time, the pollen grains from the fertile flower, they fall on the body of the insect very easily. And when the same insect visits the another flower, then what happens? When the same insect visits the another flower, then as the stigma is present, as the gynoecium, that is the female reproductive part, is also attached to the upper lobe only, very easily it receives the pollen grain from the body of the insect, and in this way the cross pollination takes place. So this is called lever mechanism. Lever mechanism is what? Generally, how the lock and key mechanism is there. That particular key only fits in the lock, right? The same way, for particular in the particular flower, particular insect can easily enter, get the nectar, and again it visits the another flower, and this way these insects, they are working as the pollinating agents. So this is very common example seen in salvia. Next type of biotic agent is birds. When the pollination takes place by the agency of birds, that is called as ornithophily. That means pollinating agents are birds, and they are and for that, very specific adaptations are seen in case of birds as well as flowers. The birds are very small in size with long beak, and the flowers are also arranged in such a way, that means the tubular structure of the flower is there, so that the beak can reach the basal part where the nectary glands are present. So now the most common examples are sunbirds and hummingbirds. You must have observed also. And the examples of ornithophilous flowers are bottlebrush, Deutzia amonosperma, that is paras, you can see. Okay, colorful, attractive flowers. Now, what are the adaptations seen in ornithophilous flower? We'll see. Flowers are usually bright colored, large, and showy. Showy. Why bright colored? So that these birds get attracted. large because it has to bear the weight of the bird, so large, and showy, same way that for the attraction of the flower, the birds. Then these are, they secrete nectar. They secrete nectar. That's why these birds visit these flowers. And then pollen grains are sticky and spiny, so that easily get stuck to the beak of the flower, the beak of the bird. That's why they are sticky and spiny. Flowers are generally without fragrance. Why without fragrance? Because the birds have poor sense of smell. So that's why no need to have any fragrance or smell. So that's why they show only presence of nectar. They are colored, large, showy, but no need to have nectar. So without nectar, they are. This is the example picture you can see here. You can see the bird is very small in size. Then the beak is long so that it can reach the base of the flower. You can see here, this is the base of the flower. Okay. This is the base of the flower where the nectary gland secretes the nectar. So this beak can reach, and the structure of flower is like that funnel shaped structure or tubular structure so that it can reach us. Okay. So the next type of pollinating agent that we will discuss pollination is by bats. When the pollination takes place by the agency of bats, this type of pollination is called as chiroptophilia. And chiropterophilous flowers, they show special adaptations in them. And maximum means the long distance is covered by this type of pollinating agents. Several kilometers distance is covered. They carry the pollen grains up to kilometers, these bats. Now, what are the adaptations seen in the chiropterophilous flowers? First is the flowers are dull colored with strong fragrance. You know why dull colored? Because when the bats are active, they're active during night. So bright color is not necessary. It's dull colored. And you know how the bat works with the sense, as well as sense, which sense is strongly used in case of these bats, how they cover the distance, how they are working during the nights. So their eye vision is not important, that is not working, but which sense? Hearing sense is important, right? And for that, flowers need not to be attractive, they are dull colored, but as their sense of smell is working, these flowers produce a strong fragrance. Sometimes they produce the rotten egg like fragrance also, so that these bats get attracted towards these flowers. They secrete abundant nectar. These flowers secrete abundant nectar, and flowers produce the large amount of these flowers produce large amount of edible pollen grains. These pollen grains are edible. That's why these bats, they work it as their food also. And when they are carrying up to kilometers long distances, then the plants like kadamba tree, Anthocephalus, Adansonia, baobab tree. It's a very large tree. Kigela, sausage tree. In these plants, it's very useful that bats are the pollinating agents. Now this is a picture you can see where entomophily is seen in the first diagram. Here is the ornithophily. The bird is getting the nectar from the flower, shown as pollinating agent, and this is the bat, that is the chiropterophilous flowers, that means plant, and this is the bat as a pollinating agent. And here is the human beings shown. These are specific type of flowers along with the seeds, which are carried easily by the human beings by their hand or by their clothes, or even it gets stuck to the body of the dogs also. This is a specific type of plants, some of you might be knowing also. So this is the picture. Now what are the outbreeding devices? Outbreeding means what? Inbreeding means what? Within. Outbreeding means outside. In self-pollination, we saw what are the adaptations that these adaptations were for inbreeding mechanism. Now, this is outbreeding devices. That means only cross-pollination is possible. That means these are the adaptations seen in the flower or the plant where there are no chances of self-pollination, but only cross-pollination is possible. Now, one by one, we will see what are these things. What are the criteria? First is unisexuality. Flowers either show the presence of male sex organ or female sex organ in them. That means they are either male flower or female flower. Either the flower contains androecium or it contains gynoecium. So that means this is called as unisexuality of the flower. Uni means single. Sexual organ, that means sex organ, means either male or female sex organ is present in the flower. So male flower is different, female flower is different, but it might be the plant might be monoecious or it might be dioecious. Monoecious means what? Mono means single. Within the same plant, male flower is also produced, female flower is also produced. The common example is maize, that is shown in your textbook also. I will come to that point later, that the diagram of the maize which is shown, that I'll explain later. But right now you just remember that maize is the monoecious plant where plant is same but the flowers are produced at the different places. So male flower is different and the female flower is different. Or it might be dioecious also. That means the male plant is different, female plant is different. That means mulberry and papaya, you must be knowing the papaya is the common example, that male papaya plant is there and female papaya plant is there, right? So that is what called as unisexuality. So in this case, there is no chance of self-pollination. So only and only cross-pollination can take place in the unisexual flowers, in the unisexuality case. Now the next is what? Dichogamy. Di is two. In this case, anthers and the anthers means pollen grains and stigma, that is part of female reproductive part. They mature at two different times. Though the flower is bisexual, but the maturation time of male, that is androecium, and maturation period of the gynoecium is different. So that is what called as dichogamy. So it prevents self-pollination. Though the flower is bisexual, but their maturation period of male and female part is different, then self-pollination is avoided. Only cross-pollination can take place. Now, there are two things which you need to remember. There are two types of dichogamy. One is called as protandry and the second is called as protogyny. Pro is first, previous. Okay. And androecium, in this case, androecium matures first, before or earlier than the gynoecium. Example is dischlorides of sunflower. And protogyny means proto is first, previous. Then gynoecium is matured first. Gynoecium matures first than androecium. That gynoecium matures earlier than androecium. And the example is gloriosa. These are the two cases. Their maturation period is not same, though the flower is bisexual. Either it may be protandry or it may show protogyny. Now, the next third criteria or the third important adaptations where only cross pollination is possible is prepotency. See, it's very interesting. Also, you can see here pollen grains of other flowers germinate rapidly over the stigma than the pollen grains from the same flower. Now I showed you first of all the diagram, right? Where the anthers which carry the produce the pollen grains, they are fallen on the stigma, right? When the pollen grains of the same flower are dropped on the stigma and the pollen grains of the another flower are dropped on the same stigma, then what will happen here in this case prepotency? The stigma will favor the germination of other pollen grain than the same. And this is very interesting case. In case of apple, it happens that pollen grains are not of the same flower are not germinated rapidly, but the pollen grains of the another flower are germinated rapidly by the stigma of the same flower. So this is what called as prepotency. That means potential nature, potency of the another pollen grain of the another flower is more than the same flower. So this is what called as prepotency. The next criteria, that is the adaptation seen, is what? Heterostyly. Heterostyly, or this is also called as heteromorphy. Now, what happens in some plants like primula, that means primrose, there are 2 or 3 forms or types of flowers in which stigmas and anthers are placed at different levels. These prevent the this prevents the pollens from reaching the stigma and pollinating it. And in heteromorphic flowers, pollen grains produced from another flower anther pollinate stigmas produced at the same level. Now you just for this you understand hetero means what? Different. Style means what? Style is a part of what? Style is a part of female reproductive organ. That means what? Gynoecium, that is the carpel. Carpel or this pistil is made up of ovary, that is the basal part. Middle part, tubular part is called as style, and the uppermost receiving part is called as stigma, right? Then heterostyle nature or heteromorphic nature means what? The length of the style and the length of the filament, they do not match. You know what are the parts in the, though the flower is bisexual, both the parts, male and female parts, are present in the same flower, but the length is unequal, which do not match each other. Then in that case, self pollination is not possible. For you can consider your middle finger and the little finger. How the length of the middle finger and the little finger is there? If the middle finger you consider as the style, length of the style, that means your carpel, and the length of the stamen, that is the filament, that means androecium is like your little finger, is it possible to fall these pollen grains on the stigma? If you consider the middle finger and the little finger as the style and the stamen, is it possible? Not possible. The flower is bisexual, it is not possible. So that is what called as heterostyly. Even in vice versa cases, if you can consider the little finger as the your length of the style and middle finger as the length of the filament, in that case also very little chances of self pollination are there, but in that case the cross pollination is favored. So this is what called as heterostyly or heteromorphy. That means morphologically these two parts are different, and that's why it doesn't favor self pollination, but rather cross pollination is possible. Now the next is hercogamy. Now it is little different than the heterostyle. How it is different than the heterostyle? That the these mechanical parts, that means these reproductive parts, that means the style and the filament, or the carpel and the stamen, they are having they are produced mechanically in such a way, they are produced that they themselves become barrier to reach each other. That means pollen grains cannot reach the stigma of the same flower. For example, in Calotropis, what happens? Pentangular stigma is present, and that pentangular stigma is positioned above the level of anther. Not only the pentagular stigma, but the pollen grains, the level of the pollen anthers, that means the pollen grains, that is the stamen or the androecium, is very less, that very low, and that's why they cannot reach the pentagular stigma. So Calotropis, everyone, what is we have learned Calotropis procera in adaptations last year. Hmm? So this Calotropis, in this case, the stigma is positioned above the level of anthers, and so it becomes the physical barrier itself. It becomes a physical barrier. So that is mechanical device. It is considered as a mechanical device to prevent the self-pollination, though the flower is bisexual. Now, the next criteria where only cross-pollination is possible is self-incompatibility. This is also called as self-sterility. Very easy to remember. Self-sterility. Self is what? Same. So, same pollen grain, when it falls on the stigma of the same flower, then it cannot germinate. But if other pollen grain falls on the stigma, then only germination takes place. So this is what called as genetic mechanism, where genetically it is not possible to have self-pollination, as the same pollen grain cannot be germinated on the stigma of the same flower, and that is commonly observed in tobacco. So inhibition of the pollen grain germination of the same flower takes place, and that is called as self-sterility or self-incompatibility. Now this is just quick overview of the in the form of diagrams. You can see pollination, right? Self-pollination, cross-pollination, Then the next is autogamy, that is within the same flower. Again, there are the examples as chasmogamy, flowers open but after the maturity, and the clistogamy, the flowers remain closed. And previously it was coming, Geitonogamy also is considered to be a part of self pollination because there is no variation as the same plant is used. Now we'll just talk about the advantages and disadvantages of self pollination and cross pollination, and then we will stop. Now, the most important thing that is about the advantage when we consider in case of self pollination is no dependency on the pollinating agents. Pollinating agents are not required at all. This is the first important advantage of self pollination. Then the second is the purity form is maintained. That means as the offsprings produced are from the same plant, parental characters only are inherited to the next plant, means offsprings. So that's why pure forms, pure characters are maintained. This is the second adaptation, or so second advantage. Now the third, sometimes there are chances of recessive characters which are very important and where some are not important. So elimination of unwanted characters also can take place by the self pollination, but there are just chances. Then these recessive characters, after every generation they are eliminated, not immediately, but after a few generations these recessive characters which are not required, so after a few generations they get removed. Then fourth is what? Seed production that is ensured with the help of less number of pollen produced. Means as there is no wastage of pollen, no required of pollinating agents, there is no wastage of pollen grains, and obviously as the flower is bisexual, seed production is ensured. So these are some of few more adaptations are also there. You can add it to the list of the self pollination adaptations. The next is disadvantage. The most important thing which you can consider in case of disadvantage in case of self pollination is new and useful characters are not introduced. As there is the same plant is producing, self pollination is taking place, the same features are carried forward, so no new value, no characters are introduced. Some important but and useful characters also cannot be introduced in the self pollination. For example, disease resistance capacity. Now generally in case of self poll, if the plant itself is having its own disease resistance capacity, then it is well and good, but if it is not there, but it can't be introduced also in case of self pollinated plants. And the second is environmental adaptability. What is environmental adaptability? If there are changes in the environment, for example, if there is flood, if there is any drought, if there is any stress factor related to the mineral nutrients, so in that case the self pollination doesn't favor, it doesn't adapt these all changes. It is not having the capability to adapt to those changes, but that is the considered to be the most uh, thing that is considered under disadvantages of self pollination. And the second is there is decrease in the vigor and vitality of race due to inbreeding depression. After every generation, what happens? The vigor gets reduced. Same characters are inbreeded, same characters are carried forward to the next generation. And in that case, generally it is observed that the production also lowers down, and vitality rate also it comes down. And so after a few generations the vigor becomes very poor, low, and there are chances of getting some important characters also getting eliminated. So this is also now. What are the advantages of cross pollination? First thing is what? Improved adaptability to the environmental changes. As two different plants are involved, different characters are coming in a same plant, so improved adaptability like environmental changes, these plants are much susceptible to the environmental the susceptible, not susceptible, they are more adaptable to the environmental changes. Self pollinated are susceptible, but cross pollinated plants are very much adaptable. Adaptability is more in case of environmental changes. If there is drought, flood, or stress factor like mineral nutrient is less or something like that, in that case these cross pollinated plants are very much adaptive, they remain, they accept the changes, they adapt the changes in the environment. The second important thing is that increased disease resistance. This is also one more important character, that disease resistance capacity is increased. Then seed production is also increased. Obviously, vigor, the production also is increased. And the most which is related to the create new varieties is that as two different plants are involved in the cross pollination, the characters from two different plants are involved, so obviously variations are observed, new recombinations, genetic recombinations are observed. These lead to the variations, and those variations lead to the formation of new species after few generations. So it is having a very important role in the course of evolution. So these are adaptations. Now, what are the disadvantages? Now we discussed advantages of cross pollination. Now, what are the disadvantages? Now, the most important thing is that dependency. Cross pollination has to depend on the pollinating agents. And the second important thing is that they don't there is no surety that these pollinating agents will go to that particular place. So there is wastage of pollen grains, especially in case of anemophily. Lot of wastage of pollen grains is there. Now the next important is that the pollen grains are to be produced in large quantity, as there is wastage of pollen grains. So that's why more energy is utilized in the production of pollen grains. So this is one disadvantage you can consider for the cross pollination. And then factor of chance is always involved. That means sometimes what happens, some undesirable characters also are introduced, and sometimes good characters also can be eliminated. So there is a chance. So obviously there is a chance. So these are some of the disadvantages of cross pollination. Now we will not come to this still pollen pistil interaction. We will come to that part later. I will come to the this one textbook for a moment, where I just want to show you these two diagrams of wind pollination. See here, I just wanted to show you that this is what the diagram of maize plant, where this inflorescence is considered to be tassel. Male inflorescence is called as tassel. And see, this is at the top pole. This is the monoecious plant, but the flowers produced are at different places. This is the male flower is different, female flower is different at axis, lower level. This is what called as female inflorescence, or this is also called as ear. Later it gets converted in kernel, right? So this is the wind pollinated example of monoecious plant. And this is the Vallisneria, where male and female plants are different. See, these are the male flowers. As they are lightweight, they go after the maturation, they grow and float on the surface of the water. And here is the female plant. This is the branch where temporarily it reaches, the stigma reaches the water surface to receive the pollen grains. So here on the above the water surface, this pollination takes place. And this is what the example of epihydrophily. I hope you have understood. And some of the questions, if you have, you note it down right now, and you can ask me later. I hope you have understood. So note down your doubts in your notebook and mark in your textbook if you are having the textbook hard copy with you. And right now also, if some of you can put it in the chat box, if not, though not possible right now, next time also we can solve those problems. So I hope you have understood. I will stop this presentation, and we'll come to the. Okay, Paras or any of you, just tell me, were you audible and you understand? Any one of you just can tell me, and whatever the doubts you have, you can note it down, or some of you can put it, come early. Okay, good. I hope everybody has understood, and what next time I will make a question bank list of the questions so that you can note it down. Okay. Thank you, students. Thank you so much. And if you have any doubts, you can note down, keep it down here. And next time again, we'll meet you very soon, next week or this week if possible. By the time you can learn whatever we have discussed here in the class, you can learn it. Thank you.